Right, where were we?
Staring into the abyss of eternity.
Is there a way to watch this morning from the very beginning?
The abyss deepens.
Hello and welcome to Haunting Bottom House, a BBC Ghost podcast. I am Luke and I am joined by Tash. How are you, Tash?
I'm alright, thanks, Luke. How are you?
I'm good. This is our second of two recordings this week.
Today.
Yeah. I mean, still technically true. Both how are you finding the double recording?
It's okay. It's the only thing is we don't have feedback because we haven't released this week's episode yet.
That is true, yeah.
So when we have completely lost train of thought there, we'll double up on feedback next week.
Yeah.
So because I think we mentioned earlier that you're going away.
I am.
So
yes.
it means that we wouldn't be able to record next week.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to say, because we don't have usually we ask at this point, what have you been doing this week? Well, we don't know. I do know one thing. I'll be going to Belgium, so
I'll be here.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's about it. Yeah,
me and Shelley are having a girls' week.
Yeah.
Gonna paint our toes.
You won't paint her toes.
Paint our nails. Yeah.
She'll lose them in 5 seconds.
Do a manicure, pedicure.
Catacure.
Paw cure. I don't know. Yeah. So we haven't really got much to fill this bit, but
not really. No. So might be a tiny bit shorter, but yeah, we might as well just get to the main content. Let's do that. This week we are looking at season 5, episode 4, entitled En Français.
En Français.
En Français. Do you know what? I translated a lot of stuff in this episode. I forgot to translate the title.
Doesn't it just mean
in French? I would assume. Yeah. Anyway, directed by Simon Hind, written by Lawrence Ricard and Ben Wilbond. And the original air date was the 27th of October 2023.
Speaking of Lawrence Ricard and
Ben Wilbond,
I've seen that they're at Birmingham Comic Con.
They are, yes.
In a couple of weeks.
What date is that?
The 29th to the 29th of November to the 1st of December, I think.
I think, because this episode, we're working in a weird space and time now. That episode 29th, did you say? The 30th. Okay, yeah, so this episode will go out. It'll be the week afterwards.
Okay.
So the week after this episode comes out, if you are in the UK, especially if you're in the Midlands,
Birmingham,
you can
go and meet them. I don't think we're going to go, are we?
No.
I think it's just expensive for the two of us, plus having to pay. We'd obviously have to pay to meet them. But if any of our listeners are going, let them know that you listen to a brilliant podcast.
Yeah. I mean, a peek behind the curtain, we did look at press, and we thought, I wonder if we could get press. That might be.
I'm not even going to try because
I think to have like that clout, you'd need to be much bigger than we are.
And the thing is, they're not interested in people that do things that are quite niche. They want someone who's going to go and promote Comic-Con, which is something we could do, but I don't think that we've got quite the following that they want. So we're not going to try and do that. But so if anyone does go, I just need to pop that in there because there's the two of them and they wrote this episode.
Yeah, I thought it was,
so it's quite quite interesting, but so would be good though.
So we start and we see the ghosts are all conducting food club. which is the captain basically listing off things. And Alison mentions that she's craving pear drops after he mentioned boiled sweets. And Mike sort of mentions, I thought it was watermelon. So it's going through her pregnancy cravings, I suppose. What's the weirdest ones of those that you hear? I've heard somebody that once wanted to eat coal or something like that.
Yeah, my friend, when she was pregnant, she had an obsession with chewing on sponges.
Yeah.
Like, she just really liked them. She didn't swallow them, obviously, because that is...
I wonder how much sponge you could eat safely.
Problematic. Probably not much, because it would sponge.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I hear some really weird and wacky combinations of foods.
Yeah.
Like ice cream and Marmite or something I don't know.
Weird, yeah. But yeah, basically the captain is essentially listing a ration pack, and we find out that he's basically done this every time it's his version of it's his turn in Food Club. And Thomas is really bored of hearing the same thing over and over again. The captain also mentions that you can actually ration a ration pack, which I don't think that's a wise decision. I don't know how long you can do that for. Kitty says that she's also bored of Food Club, and they all start going around about explaining what their food club was and always is. I like how Julian's food club is a liquid lunch, to which Alison asked him how much a pint was back in his day. And he says it was $1.90. $1.90 for the plebs, he says. 87p for the Commons members bar. So, he's always getting...
For the plebs.
It's funny hearing that, because that was he said 1990. He was a thing in 1994, was it? 95? Somewhere around then. I remember that people were in uproar at the pub that I worked at. This was in 2010, 11, something like that. They were in uproar when it went above £2.50 a pint.
And now it's £6 a pint in some places.
Depending where you go, yeah. I remember people literally said, I'm not coming back if it goes above £2.50. I said, I'm not drinking. How things have changed. So that as they're all getting bored of Food Club, the captain... he asked if he could whip out his cocksock, and
they just say cocktail society.
Yeah, Pat tries to correct him, and he suggests maybe they should. Pat suggests maybe they should have a round of Grandmother Went to the Shop, and they all think that's really boring too.
We've tried to play that before on the podcast, and I think
God, I was going to ask.
That was ages ago.
Yeah,
we played.
Yeah.
Well, half played.
I can't remember. I couldn't remember.
That was very early on.
Yeah, it was early doors. And yeah, they just say that are they just this bored? And Robin says that this isn't the boring part. The first 8,000 years that he had were the boring part before people started appearing. And they all start basically having this existential crisis, realising that that they're already bored of everything and then they're stuck here for eternity.
I think they said it's a long eternity if you're already bored of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's...
So Pat says that they need to come up with some new pastimes. And this is where he starts setting up the scene. He says, you've committed a murder, to which Julian and Robin both say, oh, it happens. You got the death sentence. And then he lingers for a bit and says, what would your last meal be? And then they realise he's just come up with a new way to snazz up Food Club as we go into the intro.
What would your last meal be?
On death row. It's a tough question. I'm trying to think of the food that I like the most. Probably it would be a burrito or something like that. I don't know. Possibly. A good one, a proper good one. Not these crap ones that you get sometimes. Yeah. Maybe that. How about you?
Well, I like variety. So
a full Chinese buffet.
A world buffet.
Yeah.
It'd be difficult, but I think I just always come back to turkey dinosaur, smiley faces, peas and beans.
Yeah.
With some
I like how I don't know what that says, that's your meal that you have when I'm not here. Is that your is that your
You don't like turkey dinosaurs.
I know, that's true, yeah.
They're not as good as jetters, to be fair.
What were they?
Just turkey dinosaurs, but in the shapes of aeroplanes.
They really have.
Or jets.
They've thought of everything.
They really have. They've hit all...
the meat nugget market.
Absolutely.
or whatever. Is that what you call it? I mean, that's just a word I came up with.
Meat nugget.
Meat nugget. What are they? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what my pudding would be.
Yeah, pudding. Yeah.
I think my starter would be some kind of cheese-based starter.
Selection, yeah.
My
I like how
pudding.
you're having a full... How many courses do you have? Just keep having...
Keep having courses because I don't die.
500 course meal.
My drink would have to be...
See, I just came with the main. I didn't even think of the rest. I'd be stuffed. I'd be fried by now.
Do you know, there's a special place in my heart for fizzy Vimto.
Yeah.
But I do also love Pepsi Max.
Yeah. Do you go with what you always have, or do you go with
Something crazy.
something crazy?
I'll have a passion fruit martini.
At least they make it interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absinthe follow. So yeah, we come back from the intro, and Mike is walking around speaking French, sort of. And we find out that this is him basically trying to impress the potential land buyer who is French, who's looking to buy this golf course. And Alison says that the deal's done if they're sending the big, she says the big cheese.
Where's that come from? Why do people say the big cheese?
I'm not sure actually, yeah. I don't know where
I should have looked it up, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it comes from. Although Mike says that this is a grand fromage. And she says that they just need to appear normal during this and get the deal over the line. Mike suggests, or comes up with this idea that they have to make some more income. Because he says that selling the land's great, but it's just a one-off sale. He suggests that they open a members bar for the people at the golf course so they can make a bit of extra money. Alison does think it's a good idea, but she says, let's just wait until we've signed this deal and then add it on.
Which I think makes the most sense.
You don't want to just ambush them with everything, really. And wise decision.
You don't want to put them off, I guess.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. And knowing how it plays out later on, probably a bit wise to maybe not throw it all at this woman, Sabine, I think her name is.
Yes, yeah.
While this is all happening, the ghosts are trying to think of some more pastime ideas. And Fanny suggests sitting in silence, to which they say that's not actually an activity. Mike continues speaking his French as he walks up the stairs. And of all people, Robin replies to him in French. Now, I couldn't help myself in this because a lot of this episode, they don't translate the French. It's only when what's Humphrey's wife's name? Sophie. Yeah, I did take notes. It's just off the top of my head. I couldn't remember. When her and her maid are talking, like, you get the full translation of the text, but we don't get a lot of it from when Mike is just talking.
Yeah.
So you did a bit of Google translating, and then also use my noggin when it said some things where it's like, that doesn't make sense. Like if you say, there was one bit where Robin says it's like en garde or something like that at the end. And literally it was like, I can defend myself, but what it meant in the context of it was, I can hold my own. It's like, okay, you have to sort of, sometimes Google Translate is very literal.
Yeah.
So Mike, as he's going downstairs, says when he's downstairs, he says, I don't understand. I don't like modern music. Where do you live, miss? So you can tell that his French that he's learning is just very much...
Duolingo.
Yeah, like weird phrases that probably wouldn't be that useful.
GCSE French.
Yeah, basically. I know how to say supermarket. Supermarché. As he's going up the stairs, he is saying, where is the train station, please? Robin replies, I think the main station is close to here, in the village next door, I think, but you should ask your wife. I have a big burning question about this. How the hell does Robin know the French for train station when he learnt French from people in the 1500s?
Don't question it. Don't question any of him.
My only guess is la gare, which is that like the word for train station must have just meant like coach station or something, or like, don't know, something like that back in the day. Like, when I say coach, I mean like a horse and carriage coach or something like that. But I just thought, I was like, that's weird. Unless he's been keeping up with it.
No, exactly. He might have been.
Yeah. Don't know how, but anyway. But yeah, so not to take away from this scene. So Mike is walking up the stairs and speaking in French, and then Robin fluently replies to him in French. The ghosts are all completely shocked about this, and they say, "You can speak French." This is where he says, "Well, yes, I can hold my own." And this is where we see a flashback where we see Robin talking to William. One of the ghosts he mentioned when he was talking about the stars in the sky.
Yes, yeah.
Which I feel like a fool now because I think I said at the time, it'd be nice to have seen some of these ghosts.
Well.
Clearly do. We can see William sitting there with a sword through his chest. So
I wonder how he died.
Yeah. Very Anglo-Saxon looking, which I think I said I wonder if he was Anglo-Saxon, but now I do wonder, did I know and like subconsciously remember it? And he is telling a joke about a potential fight he was going to be involved in. It's quite a good joke, actually. It took me a while. To get it, actually. I was like, Robin.
I didn't get it.
I can't, I'm never going to go and recount it. But yeah, as he finishes telling this joke, he's whisked away, or sucked off if you're Mary. I like at this point, Robin doesn't really react to that. He sort of looks and he's like, but it implies that he's seen this before. This isn't the first time. So again, he's been here so long that people have come and gone, which is kind of he mentions later on as well. We then see Robin just stuck at this house, which I guess this is when it was Bone Hall or Bone House, I'm not sure. And he's just up there, very lonely, just wandering around the grounds, wandering around the house, and he's just all on his own. And this is when we see a very, very young Humphrey, who, I did some research into this. The guy who plays the young Humphrey is the actor who plays his headless body.
No way!
Yeah, it's the same guy. Because he's like a smaller guy because they had to get somebody. Who's
the same height as his shoulders.
Yeah, which is
that's mad.
But yeah, it's the same guy. Is young Humphrey.
Are you absolutely sure?
100%. Yeah, I looked it up. It's 100% him. Yeah.
That's so good.
I think it makes sense though.
Yeah,
he doesn't speak, so
no.
Need to. And then we also see Sophie as well arrive with Humphrey's dad, and who I thought initially was Sophie's mother, but it turns out it's her maid. And he's giving them the house as a wedding present. Robin just rolls his eyes at the dad boasting and everything. He must have seen people like this all through history, I guess. And Sophie says that the house is cold and damp. Bit like England, which she's not wrong. It is cold and damp. As she wanders into the room that Humphrey will eventually die in, as we see, it's the fireplace with the swords above it. She says, in French, obviously, "I don't like it here. I'll retreat to my room at home. I don't want to stay here." And then Robin is just absolutely entranced by her speaking French. And watches on. We go back to the present, and Pat says that Robin is a bit of a dark horse, and he says an noir cheval, and then Robin corrects him and says un cheval sombre. It's like, I like the idea of Robin correcting Pat and his rubbish French. I think literally because I was like, what's the difference in there? And it's like, Pat's calling him a black horse, where he's saying dark horse is sombre. I was like, that's interesting. And Pat says that he speaks his second language even better than his first. And he says that he had a good teacher.
Would he even... I guess he would have spoken English because he would have encountered other ghosts. But when Robin was alive, would he have spoken English?
When he was alive? No.
No, that's what I was thinking. Like, he's only learned to speak whilst dead.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know how long the English language has existed, and it's very different back in it. I think somebody said that if you went back like 500 years and tried to converse with somebody, they'd be bamboozled by what you're trying to say to them. Mainly because Shakespeare invented most of the words that we now use.
But that's crazy, isn't it?
Not all of them. It's probably exaggeration, but yeah. He says that he had a good teacher, and we see Humphrey who's lying on the floor, kind of look up suspiciously, and they go back to talking about things that they can fill their time with, and like Thomas says that he's staring into the abyss of eternity, and Fanny suggests that they watch This Morning from the very beginning, which. I also did some research. At the time of recording, that would be 3,209 episodes of This Morning if they tried to watch them all. If they could somehow find a way to watch them all.
So if you watched one every day...
9 years. Nearly 9 years.
Oh, 9 years.
And then you'd be 9 years behind. So you'd have to watch all of that.
I think you'd have to watch 2 episodes a day. You'd have to watch, like I do with EastEnders.
Yeah.
Because I probably mentioned this, but I've started EastEnders from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So...
And whilst currently watching the current EastEnders...
Very confusing. Very confusing. 10 years wasn't enough to go back for it to be very, very different to what it is now.
There's still characters in it.
Yeah, I really should have gone back 20
Do you know what it reminds
or 15 years.
It reminds me of, do you know Doctor Strange in Avengers when he gets like the time stone and he's going through all these like things and
in
like
time,
trying to figure out the best way. That's why you're just so confused because you're out of time.
I am just like Doctor Strange, to be
fair. So Fanny suggests watching all of that, and then Thomas says the abyss deepens. The ghosts all argue about what they should do to pass the time. Fanny suggests they just watch television. The captain thinks they should come up with a game of some kind, some activity. And Kitty thinks they should put on a show. And they argue about this. They keep saying television, game, show, television, game, show. And obviously with this...
it sparks an idea.
Yes, it sparks an idea in him. We'll see the fruits of that labour in a second. Alison finally meets the French buyer, Sabine, and her interpreter, Garion. Mike is incredibly awkward throughout this entire interaction.
He's awkward whenever he meets anyone,
to
be fair.
I think he's just an awkward person. As Alison says hello, Mike says bonjour to impress Sabine, but then because of this, the interpreter translates it back to him, which confuses the situation. And then Alison just tells him to stop being weird and stop speaking in French. He complains that it's his fault because he keeps repeating everything that he says, and she basically says that that's his job. And he asks Alison what she has in her bag, and she says she won't tell her unless he promises to stop speaking French. They get into a bit of a stalemate over this. We go back to the ghosts, and Pat starts humming a theme tune. The theme tune to Blankety Blank.
Blankety blank, blankety blank. Boom, boom. Blankety blank, blankety blank. Boom, boom.
And joining us on the panel tonight,
Blankety blank.
Stephanie Button, Catherine Hyatt, Humphrey Bone, Thomas Thorne, Robin, and the rest of Humphrey Bone.
Blankety blank.
Hello and welcome to Blank or Blanks.
Blankety blank.
Boom, boom.
Robin.
No.
Yeah. A missing word game, apparently, requiring of 2 antagonists who will now identify themselves. Patrick, your name and rank, please.
Hello, I'm Pat Butcher, originally from Huddersfield, and in my spare time, I lead an adventure youth group.
Very good. And Pat's enemy tonight is?
Julian Fawcett, former politician, brackets, disgraced. And in my spare time, I like wine, women, and song. Although I'm not so bothered about the song.
Very good, very good. On to round one. No one was harmed during the training exercise because the Lee Enfield rifles were all loaded with blanks.
Right. No.
No?
No. The missing word can't actually be the word blank. You say blank to show where the missing word is, and then we have to guess what it might be. And perhaps, make the questions a little bit more fun. And maybe a bit saucy.
Oh, yeah.
Saucy.
Yeah, like Aunt Jenny's cakes were the pride of the county. Everyone loved her flowery baps, but the stars of the show were her cream-covered blanks.
Good one, Pat.
No.
I will not debase myself with your cheap double entendre.
Fanny, come on, Fanny.
For our international listeners, blankety blank is the UK name for match game.
Snatch game.
Yeah,
If you're
a drag race fan. Yeah. I don't even know where to start with this.
Yeah. It's one of them ones where you're like, that has to be a quote because we can't break it down.
Yeah. I just love everything about this scene. It's the headshot intros of them all waving straight on the camera. And the rest of Humphrey Bone. I like the captain just being really formal. He says, can you give him your name and rank? I won't go too much into what was in this scene. I like the captain as well doesn't really understand the game because he uses the word blank in the place of blank. I like as soon as Pat gives his idea as well of this sort of risque joke, the prudish members the apparently prudish members of the house get very upset about this of Fanny and the captain, even though we know Fanny very much is intrigued by...
She likes mucky books.
She does. But yeah, Pat said this doesn't work, and they all start arguing. So Pat suggests a bit of bully, which Kitty says, is that a sentence? And he explains what bullseye is. Again, I don't know if this translates to people who are not from the UK. Bullseye is like a darts quiz show where you had one person who would throw darts and the other would answer questions. And you won like a minimal amount of prize money.
Or a speedboat.
Or a speedboat, yeah. There was no
because that's something that everyone in the UK would want, isn't it? A speedboat.
Yeah. I imagine if we win it, I wouldn't even know where to go.
Well, I love bullseye. She
do
knows.
Bullseye.
Even though it wasn't on TV in any of the time when I've been alive.
I'm trying to think if I ever it was on while I was a really young kid. I don't know. But yeah, it's a fun game. Darts and questions.
What more could you need?
Pat mentions that he was a big fan of the arrows, and Julian points at his neck, and I just like how he says this was before. Kitty suggests maybe they should try the game show where you get points for having less points. I think it's called Less Points, she says.
Is that even a game show?
Pointless?
Oh, yeah!
That's the joke. I like Thomas's response to this though, and he says, "What's the point in not having points?" He says, "You've got to have points because if he does questions, he wants to have the best answer on the board." Now, I don't usually agree with Thomas, but I think this is why I don't get on with Pointless. I'm like, no, you want big points for big pointless. That's counter to everything, you know. I'm not a big fan of Pointless. Let's just leave it at that. Pat says he has another idea, but we'll leave that for now as we go back to Humphrey talking to Robin, and he basically says that he knows that his wife taught him French. And I like how during this conversation, Humphrey basically acts like this was an affair between Robin.
Because I kind of was a bit confused. I was like, have I missed something that happened? Because he was just so annoyed with Robin. And I was like, how does he expect that she interacted with him? Like, I don't understand.
If it's an affair, it's a very one-sided affair. And then we see basically... a bit more of Robin and Sophie's relationship. We see Sophie and her maid, who... it was only the second scene that I realised who it was. This is the woman, do you know, in Game of Thrones, where Khal Drogo's like wounded, and she's like, "Oh,
yes.
save him." Yeah.
She's also in an episode of Call the Midwife as well.
Yes,
I think.
Yeah. Done a lot of acting roles, I think. But yeah, she's her maid, and we see Robin watching on and speaking back in like French that he's picked up from them as they have a conversation. Humphrey knocks at the door and is completely unable to understand what they're saying, as Sophie literally shouts at her maid, "Tell him I died last night," in French. In the part that isn't translated, she does say, "Since when has he been listening to me?" So again, sort of kind of gets to the problem that Sophie had with him, and what they sort of bring up later. He says that his father's organising a banquet and he wants them both to be there. It's kind of a keeping up appearances kind of thing, where it sounds like neither of them actually want to go, but they kind of have to because they're part of the family, and it's, showing face. He quickly retreats away when he's explained it. You can get this. You can tell from this brief interaction that this marriage is an absolute sham. Like, it's all for show and for status. There's no intimacy whatsoever between the two of them here. It's a weird one because we've kind of mentioned this in the last episode that is there. It feels like he wants to try but isn't trying enough to learn a bit of French, but also vice versa is,
it's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's I did sort of make note of that he just doesn't try hard enough. It's sort of half-assed trying. Like, well, I did try. It's like, but did you really try?
I suppose it's both, though, isn't it? Because also, like, I think Sophie doesn't learn English either.
No, it works both ways.
But again, did she want to be part of that? Did either of them want this marriage? You know what I mean? So it's hard to say.
And they were very young. Like, when we see them, obviously... when they first get to Button House or Bone Hall, whatever it's called at the time, they are really young, so it's kind of it's a tricky one.
I imagine this was a situation that was quite common with the sort of nobility back in the day. And as he leaves, she doesn't really understand what he said and says, I think it was something about nipples, because he says that
there's going to be nibbles
there. And we see when they say that, they say men, and this is where Robin picks up a new word where he learns that homme is French for men. Back in the present, we see Alison and Mike showing Sabine the grounds, and they say, this is our land and this is the part of Barclay's land that you're also going to be purchasing. And they all agree that Barclay is just a bit of a handful, as they all say "we" a lot. Mike tries to sort of cut out the interpreter and speak directly to Sabine, but is interrupted again by the interpreter, who Mike just gets angry at now. It's a weird one, this is, because I understand, like, the interpreter has to translate everything that's said, but if I could see somebody was earnestly trying to speak French to somebody who spoke
I would
French,
take a step back.
I would take a step back and go,
Or I'd speak in French and say, I think they want to speak to you in French. If you need any help to translate, let me know.
It's very much, and later on it's even more apparent. He's tried, but it's very much Del Boy French.
Yes.
It's just not very good.
Yeah.
Especially at the end when he's shouting words at her and stuff like that. But yeah, while this is happening, he basically tries to crowbar in his members bar idea, to which Alison realises this is not on, basically. She needs to shut this down. So she tries to calm the situation by just saying, does anybody want any tea? Which only slightly helps, because then Mike pours a massive He pours a little tiny bit of tea for Sabine and then an entire cup full for Gary, which I didn't realise what his idea was.
No, neither did I. Yeah. I thought he was like trying to spill it on him or just
trying to stop him from talking because he's
drinking. That's what I thought. I didn't think about the implications of him needing to go to the toilet. Exactly. Very smart of Mike, actually.
I know, quick thinking. We go back to the ghosts, and they are playing. I put catchphrase. It's not catchphrase. It's Family Fortunes.
Family Fortunes. Yeah.
I got my game shows mixed up and stuff. Yeah. They mentioned that they asked 3 and a bit people what could kill you, and Kitty says that a cloud could kill you. Which they say. She said if you fell from it. And they ask her to sort of think of something that maybe somebody might have come up with. So she says, kicked by a horse. They get the nah from the ghosts, as obviously none of them were kicked by a horse. Kitty gets really annoyed at this and says that her cousin was killed by a horse this way, so she's just quitting and he's not taking part in this game. And then Fanny says they need to go back to square one, and this is where it gives Pat another idea. Mike is basically the interpreter, and they're all walking in the field, and Mike is again just assaulting him with tea basically at this point, constantly keeping his cup filled up. Again, I didn't realise that he was trying to make him go to the toilet. I just thought he's trying to stop him from speaking.
That's what I thought too, yeah.
We go back to the ghosts, and from this square one idea, they've come up with mastermind. As Julian asks the captain what his specialist subject is, he said it's Allied tanks and amphibious landing crafts from 1939 to 1945, which Julian then says he has no idea, any questions and stuff like that. They realise it's a bit too niche. And Thomas says then they need to come up with a more knowable subject, something that they can all give questions for and answers to. And then he suggests 18th century romantic poets, going completely against this. We see Robin walk in again, and he talks to Humphrey, and he says it wasn't really a thing, this sort of affair that he thinks they've had. And Humphrey just says that he's upset that he was married for 20 years and they barely shared a meal. And he says that they were BFFs. To which Robin thinks he's trying to say the word boofs.
Yeah.
And he says, this is where he says that he did try to speak to her. And Robin says that you talked, he says this in French, but he says you talk, but you don't listen.
Yeah.
Which, this sounds like something that Sophie must have said verbatim.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just repeating her words back to him. And he says that the thing is, he could only listen. Robin could. And this is where we see a flashback, and we see Sophie basically watching over her maid who's dying. And she says that she had a good life in this country, despite all the Protestants and the rain. Instilling these Catholic sort of values in her, I think, which probably led to this plot that they come up with later on. As she dies, we see her spirit pass go up again, like we did with Lady Button right at the beginning of the series. She sort of sees Robin behind Sophie, which must freak her out a bit, you know what I mean, before she passes on. I do wonder if he hoped that she stayed, because obviously he'd been having this conversation.
Yes, yeah. I sort of thought maybe she was there for a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know why I remembered that. Or thought I remembered that she did stay, yeah.
But she doesn't. She goes on and only briefly sees Robin. Humphrey tries to give condolences. Where he knocks on the door, but he's just very matter of fact. He says the whole house was very upset. And it's just, there's no tact to it.
I think it's quite sweet when she's sat on the bed. And Robin almost, he doesn't know how to, position his body. He's kind of like, I I know that I want to comfort her and I want to like touch her, but I can't. Like, you know, like when you comfort someone, even like the most minimal of like physical contact when you do that is like a hand on the shoulder, like tapping, you know, like, oh, I'm sorry that like you're going through this, and or even like as meaningful as like a hug. So it's you can kind of see in his body that he's like desperate to do something. Which is really what she. Even if Humphrey'd have offered that to her, would she have accepted it? There's too much gone on where they're so distant that...
That's the thing. Like, can you even repair that relationship?
I don't think so, no. I really don't think so.
I think it's only at the very end there where she realised that he was a good person and she maybe should have tried more and he should have tried more and they could have worked on it. But I mean, at that point, it was too late. So yeah, as you mentioned, Robin's on the bed with her. So not in that way. Outside, Mike suggests that they could cut through the back door as they're right there, as they've walked around all the fields, conveniently open. And we basically see that Mike has set up a cocktail bar, so he knows he's got this pitch ready, basically. And we also see more of Mike's plan as he's been giving Gary in this tea to make him go to the toilet and then refuses to take him to the toilet. So
he's been playing the long game,
hasn't he?
Yeah. Very much.
Yeah, because he wants to get Sabine on her own so he can pitch this idea. And Alison, realising that Mike is not going to take him to the toilet, realising she has to. Mike sees his chance and starts pitching his idea for this bar while he's in the sort of area where they want to have the bar. And he's even made a PowerPoint and everything explaining all of this his ideas. We go back to the flashback and we see that Sophie is walking the grounds with Robin. Not really a lot of dialogue in this part now, as he's just accompanying her and just learning French from like her reading and stuff like that. We skip forward in time and see the scene where Humphrey dies from the bone plot, and we see Robin wakes up and he sees Sophie just running across the lawn and leaving, and I think you can see it in his face that he's really sad that he's lost a friend and a teacher at this point. And this is where we see Humphrey dead on the floor again. I'm always surprised at how gruesome this is. Yeah. And we see that same scene where the two guards say that they'll say that they did this and whatnot. And now we see from Robin's point of view as he walks in. He walks past and then goes back like he wasn't actually going to go in. And then this is where he says, I had a tough night, and Humphrey screams, and what we saw before, basically.
He says, like, bad day.
Bad day, yeah, that's it, yeah. And back in the present, we see that Humphrey just asks if he misses Sophie, and Robin says he misses a lot of people, but more come along, which again is that he nods, and then Humphrey reassures him that he's also nodding.
Yeah.
I like this though because it's that kind of talking about Robin's experience, which is just like no other person on earth has had that experience of having people constantly coming into his life and leaving, and just being like, well, more people will come along. Like it is like a carousel, really. His life is. It's just really strange.
We never really find out why he's stuck around for so long, do we?
No, not really. Yeah.
It's weird. I wonder what's his trauma.
That it's unresolved. Yeah. Because you'd think like it'd be resolved by when he saved Mike or from the lightning or something like that. But if he's not moving on there, when will he? Which is just sad, I suppose.
Yeah.
Humphrey does ask if Robin could teach him some French.
When I said that, I was like, now you want to learn French. It's about 100, how many 100 years too late.
Yeah. I suppose it's more like atoning for like his mistakes in the past, maybe. Can't use it, but at least he's made an effort now.
Do you think if you are a ghost and when you were... So say, for example, Humphrey and Sophie. So Sophie fled, didn't she?
Yeah.
And we assume survived.
Yeah, I'm sure, really. I don't know if she does survive, yeah.
So when, as a ghost, does he know that she's now a ghost or was a ghost? Is a ghost?
Yeah. Did she die somewhere else and he's stuck there as a ghost?
Yeah. Like how... I guess my question is, as a ghost, do you know when someone else becomes a ghost? Or not a ghost, or moves on, or whatever?
Yeah. I guess you wouldn't. No. Really, yeah. No. Strange. Unless they've looked up on records of, like, what happened. But then again, if she died somewhere, then you wouldn't know. Yeah, who knows?
I guess, the only way would be... I mean, without looking it up. Like, have you got just a spidey sense?
For ghosts, yeah. Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure. I assume you just don't know. It's just... Yeah. Unless they died near you, I suppose.
Well, exactly. You see them. You're like, oh, man.
They, as they walk past, the other ghosts are still trying to figure out, because he's walking past trying to teach him some French, holding his head. All the other ghosts are trying
holding his own head.
Yeah. They're trying to wonder how to make mastermind work. They suggest they should stick to general knowledge and current events, which they say doesn't really work for some of the ghosts because they died well before some of the things would have happened, so they wouldn't know anything. So they say the only thing they could do is if they got somebody who's alive now, so they can ask them questions from all of their different eras, and it would actually work. So naturally,
it's going to be Alison.
So Alison takes Gary into the toilet. And Pat
sounds like he's like 4 years old.
Yeah. Pat finds Alison and says if he could borrow her for 2 minutes, and she says she's a bit busy. But then he hears Gary and then he says he's doing a full-on horse sweep, so we've definitely got time. She relents and goes with them, sits down for her general knowledge questions, basically. First question, definitely you can tell who they're from.
Yes.
So the first one definitely from the captain is he asks what plane flew alongside the Spitfire, was it, or the Hurricane? Garion leaves the toilet at this point, walks into the room that Alison is in, and just sees her answering questions in an empty room, and then just says in French, "What's going on with these people?" Yeah. Which, if you, he must have thought that Mike was acting weird, and they've seen Alison just
talking
saying words, basically, you know what I mean? She's not even having a conversation, she's just shouting out random words. We go back to Mike, and he's finishing the pitch to Sabine, and she says that it looks like it might work, and she does have a little bit of English where she says the idea is good. We go back to Alison, and we find out that she scored 12 on her general knowledge. And she quickly gets up and says, just leave my prize in the post. And the ghosts are a bit confused that he would get a prize, and he explains what prizes in a game show are. And he goes back to Bullseye, which is where he says that you can win a speedboat, which is even a hamper. And this gives them another idea. We go back to Mike, and he's still giving his cocktail ideas, or he's giving his bar ideas, and he's made cocktails for these for the golf bar, basically. One of them was called Perfect Green, and she says, I like golf. And she drinks it and then immediately starts clutching her neck and collapses, which, I mean, any time that's happened,
never a good sign.
I'm like, it's nut allergy straight away. Yeah. Which it is. We find out Robin, I like how casually Robin and Humphrey come in and go, this is a good teaching moment. As they they find out that she's allergic to nuts, which is the hazelnut in this green cocktail. They eventually figure out. Alison walks into this moment, and they're all start panicking, trying to figure out where her medicine is for this. And she can hear Humphrey and Robin speaking French, which confuses her, but also there's bigger problems at the moment. And long story short, they find out that her medicine is in her the front pocket of her handbag. And Robin and Humphrey share a bit of a moment where they've learnt some French. And Robin says, "Oh, you don't need to thank me," as he thanks his long dead wife.
Yeah.
And then we're kind of at the end of the episode where Sabine and Garion are leaving. They say thank you. Mike apologises for the drink. And she says that they are... Sorry.
No, I just feel like she's very chipper for someone that's just had a legit reaction.
Died, yeah. But she didn't. They saved her with the power of French language.
Yeah.
So they say that they are kind and they'd love to do business with them. And as Garion is trying to translate this back, Alison replies in French fluently, and she understands what she's been saying. And obviously we know that Robin's saying this talk to her. I'd be very annoyed though, but if I was a translator, I'd be like, "Why did you need me?"
Yeah.
And they leave. Mike goes inside and suggests that they could have a cocktail to celebrate this. Alison says that she can't, obviously, being pregnant, but she said she could murder a White Russian. As then Robin begins to speak Russian and says he's a bit more rusty on that. Any guesses when he learned Russian?
I wouldn't like to guess.
I mean, he could have, any point in the last 10,000 years he could have interacted. So yeah, probably best not to think about that one. Any ideas that you have out there, just let us know though. The ghosts all agree that Pat's game show idea was a success, and we see the captain now talking about what his dream bullseye hamper would be, and it's essentially him just repeating what would be in his ration pack again. So we come full circle to the food club again, and that's the end of the episode. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a good episode again. I definitely enjoyed the blankety blank segment. I thought that was really good. I made some notes. I did actually make some notes. Yeah, so I like the blankety blank and like playing. Well, they didn't really play bullseye. They just kind of discussed it. And, playing mastermind and family fortunes. Like I think it was just fun. I kind of enjoy those episodes. Enjoyed the flashbacks with Robin when he was sort of. I don't know. We see like a different side to him, and I think we definitely sort of. I keep sort of fixing on that like softer side that we saw when Sophie's nursemaid died. That he like wanted to be comforting but couldn't, and I think it's just interesting that he is fluent in French. And he's remembered it from how many hundreds of years.
And he probably wouldn't have had much chance to use it.
No. But I imagine I can just sort of picture him walking the grounds of Button House, practicing it to himself. Like he probably doesn't need to practice it with anyone. And yet the stuff with Mike as well, like it was just funny. I think through this series before and through this series before, that makes no sense, but like throughout this series, and I think towards the end of the last series, like I feel like Mike is just such a good character. Really underrated.
I think Alison and Mike, to be fair, like you kind of just see the ghosts, but I think they themselves are quite strong characters.
Definitely. I think just Mike, because he can't see the ghosts or interact with them, and this episode he didn't really interact with them that much anyway. I don't know. I just think he's probably the most underrated character, which sounds odd.
Yeah,
but
I know you mean,
but I think when you say who's your favourite character, we've always like gone for one of the ghosts. And obviously as we're getting towards the end of the entire sort of 5 series, we're going to be asking ourselves, or each other and listeners, who's your favourite character overall, and ask me straight, like if you ask me right now who my favourite character is overall, for the whole 5 series, I think I would say Mike.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is strong.
It is. Yeah. I just think... it's really strange.
Like, you know what? I do get it though, because I think there's a lot of times where you don't think of him initially, but if you start thinking about like his contribution, you go, he's actually done a lot. Like,
I just think he's just so funny.
Yeah.
And no, you're right. It's difficult. I'm saying this I just say what I think in every aspect on the podcast and in life in general. I tend to just say things, so maybe I'll... but I have been thinking about this a lot, and I do think, he is one of my favourite characters, if not the favourite. I dare say maybe I'll change my mind when we come to discussing our favourite characters right at the end. Because it kind of feels like I can't say Mike because it has to be one of the ghosts. But yeah, I think he's a really great character. So yeah, overall, I think really enjoyed the episode. I think it's on par with the last episode. So I'm going to give it a 9 again.
Okay.
Purely for blankety blank. And just Mike being Mike.
Yeah.
What about you?
I really, really like this episode. I think the combo of the game show segments just really funny, and completely opposite to the rest of the story that's going on. This just it's kind of like a sketch show in the middle of it. You know what I mean? These weird sketches that they're doing, and then just that heartfelt story of Robin just basically looking for a friend. You know what I mean? It's really, really sad when you think of it. It's just I think both plot lines were just really good. And I really, really liked it. It's not a 10 out of 10. I did knock it down. I don't think it's the best episode.
No.
But I gave it a 9 as well. I think it was quite strong. IMDb though, not as generous as us. 305 votes. We got a 7.9. So quite low.
I'm surprised not even an 8.
Yeah.
That surprises me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think why that might be.
I can't think of a reason.
No.
This feels to me like as big of a slam dunk of a Ghosts episode that you could have, you know what I mean? It hits everything that a Ghost episode would want. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's not higher.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Ghost Stories with Luke and Tash.
So, this week we have a story. I thought I'd keep it in theme. Of I won't say. I'll just read the story.
All right, okay, I'm ready.
In the heart of a misty French forest.
No. What's the theme?
Anton stumbled upon a narrow, winding path that wasn't on his map. His flashlight flickered, casting a dim, wavering light through the shadows of the trees. He'd been rumbling late and took a wrong turn, ending up somewhere deep in the Vosges Mountains. I think that's a French mountain range. Just as he was about to turn back, he saw her. A woman standing in the middle of the path. She was pale as the moonlight itself, wearing a white dress that billowed as if caught in an invisible breeze. She looked both ethereal and trapped, as though she was searching for something in the dark. Are you lost? Antoine asked, his voice echoing in the silence. Her eyes met his, deep and sorrowful, as though they held centuries of regret. This is filled with pathos here. She didn't speak, but her gaze was enough to pin him in place. He noticed her wrists marked with faint, dark lines that looked like scars. They pulsed with a faint glow, making her appear both fragile and powerful. What? Sorry. Antoine felt the prickling of danger, but he couldn't move. as though some unforeseen force held him in place. Slowly he raised one hand, pointing down the path. Slowly she raised one hand, pointing down the path he'd been walking. "Take care." Her voice was a soft, mournful whisper, barely above her breath. She vanished as suddenly as she'd appeared, leaving only the damp night and the dark path ahead. Compelled, Antoine moved forward, his heart pounding. Around the next bend he stumbled, nearly tripping over a gnarled root, and that's when he saw it. A cliff edge, hidden by the thick fog, dropping sharply into a ravine. One more step and he would have gone over. Shaken, he turned back, and there she was again, standing a distance away, watching him. But now he understood. La Dame Blanche, a woman betrayed in love, cursed to roam these woods, wasn't there to haunt or harm him. She was there to warn him, as she has warned countless travellers before him. Nodding his thanks, Antoine retraced his steps to the pathway he started, his mind heavy with the memory of her sorrowful gaze as he reached the edge of the woods. He glanced back one last time, but she was gone. The next day, Antoine heard locals speak of the Lady in White, La Dame Blanche. They whispered that she only appears to those who are fated to meet a terrible end, her appearance a dire warning of death, that when heeded, grants survival. Antoine left the village soon after, but he could never shake the memory of her eyes, deep with the weight of all those lives saved and lost along the winding path of the forest. The end. So it's based on a kind of myth in France and all different places in Europe about La Dame Blanche, which is actually like a spirit that stops you from, well, something like an accident basically happening. So yeah. And in Canada, they've moved. They've gone over the seas, so they're everywhere. God. But yeah, anyway, that's my scary story for this week. We'll see you next time. Ooh.
That was cringe. Thanks for listening. We love to hear what you think, and if you'd like to keep up to date with when new episodes of the podcast are released, you can follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook profile. Just search Haunting Button House. You can also get in touch via email at hauntingbuttonhouse@outlook.com.